I really want to like Baio Senshi DAN. There's a lot of clever ideas in it, and it looks pretty good. But then when I play it, the stiff controls and how tough it is to dodge enemy shots leaves me disappointed. It wouldn't even take that much more polish to improve the game. Just make the jumping a little bit better. Just a little bit. And Baio Senshi DAN would be an enjoyable game. Instead, it's a disappointment. This is Atlus's second game ever. Their first one was Megami Tensei, which was released just 1 week before Baio Senshi DAN. Atlus was a developer for hire for quite a while. Though when they finally start publishing their own games, they do manage to get 2 out for the Famicom. Baio Senshi DAN is another game in the action-adventure genre, which I think we can safely say is now the dominant genre on the Famicom. There's 5 stages, each taking place in its own time period. The story is that Dan is a guy who has alien biotechnology implanted in his body so that he can time travel and stop those aliens from taking over the world. And each stage is a maze that you have to work your way through. You start out with just a knife to defend yourself, and on your journey you'll find shops where you can purchase new weapons and upgrade your existing ones. You get energy from killing some enemies, and that energy is used both as your weapon ammunition and as currency. Energy pods give you 10 units back, so if you can defeat your foe before that much drains, you get a net profit. The weapons I found were the heat knife, which you start with, and it costs 0 energy. If you upgrade it, the blade shoots out a little bit and comes back. The knife is by far the weakest weapon, and once you have anything else, you'll probably want to use it. The spider shot is your basic gun, and it's actually built into Dan's arm. It only costs 2 energy to use, and it can be upgraded to increase the damage output. The spider shot can also reveal some hidden passages. Next up is the smart bomb. It flies in a high arc and then explodes. Baio Senshi DAN has a bad tendency to place enemies just above your reach, which makes this the best weapon to use for them. It costs 6 energy per shot though. The Pulsar Bee is a discus that shoots straight out and returns. The big advantage of it is that the shot will pass through solid objects. It can also hit enemies multiple times, and it's especially useful against bosses. Each shot of it takes 4 energy. The rolling shot surrounds you with a halo of bullets. It only lasts a moment, and it costs 6 energy. I didn't find that one to be especially useful. There's also some power-up items you can buy. You can only carry 1 of these at a time though. There's scanner goggles that will let you see in dark places. It's only useful on level 2. The jet shoes make you move significantly faster. That seems nice on the surface, but I ran into an issue with it. Dan has some stiff jumping movement, and he tends to collide with things and then fall down. The additional speed you get from the jet shoes winds up making some jumps nearly impossible as you hit the edge but can't get over. The Psycho Barrier reduces all damage that you take by half. That's easily the best option if it's available. Another distinctive thing you can find in those side rooms is this guy. He wants to have a wrestling match with you. All you have to do is mash A as fast as you can, and if you get him to the end, then he gives you a lot of energy. The maximum energy is 999, and it isn't that hard to reach, especially with big energy boosters like that lying around. The other significant thing in those doors are inns. You give them some energy, and then you spend the night in a traditional Japanese inn. You can only use an inn once though, so you might want to save it for when you really need it. As you're running around the stages and fighting monsters, you might spot that some of them evolve. For evolving monsters, they have 4 forms, and if you leave them running around, they'll eventually change to the next one. Since there isn't a greater reward for defeating the stronger enemies, that's a bad thing for you. Another issue if you're going slow? The MV in the upper right-hand corner is the boss's hit points. They're constantly increasing as you play through each stage. Get to the boss fast, and it'll only take a few hits to defeat. Take your time, and you're in trouble. you'll have to exit their room and then come back, letting them have a chance to rebuild their health. And that's one of the more annoying things in Baio Senshi DAN. The side passages aren't really well marked. If you see a big square just floating up in the air, that's probably a side passage. Sometimes it's not though. And there's plenty of them that are invisible. There's always unique power-ups behind those too. Things like weapons and weapon power-ups. So you effectively have to locate them. On the stages, the first and second stage are relatively linear. There's a few branches you need to take to collect items, but you can just stick to the path to get to the end. Stage 3 is where it opens up, and becomes a lot more complicated. You'll find a lot of branching paths there, and there are multiple routes to get to the boss, some faster than others. I've already mentioned the clunky movement in Baio Senshi DAN, but there's a lot to it. The jumping is almost Castlevania style, except Dan's kind of sticky when he collides with things. And it's not always clear what platforms are reachable. Crouching is also a little bit odd. You'll press down and after a short delay you'll lay flat, and you can crawl around on your belly until you press up again. That slow responsiveness becomes an issue when it comes to dodging projectiles. All of the higher level enemies have some kind of shot, and it's almost impossible to either jump over them or duck under them. There's just too much of a delay and not enough control. So I wound up soaking up a lot of damage rather than being able to dodge it. If you get a game over, it automatically continues you 5 times. Though when you do continue, you go back to the start of the stage that you died on, and everything has been reset. Despite my annoyance with Baio Senshi DAN, it is well liked in Japan. I think a lot of that comes down to how nice the game looks. It does look nice. It's one of the better looking Famicom games we've had. But that gameplay just needed a little bit more refinement. At least it's not a particularly difficult game. I was following a guide and made it pretty far. Would I play Baio Senshi DAN again? Yeah, probably would. There's just enough here to keep me going, and I feel like I could beat it with a little bit more effort. But I think I'd play a lot of other games in preference to this one.